Now available in paperback and coming to Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, Dark Succubus. The man who rules the world is tempted by a sultry succubus in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Dark Succubus in paperback or pre-order on Kindle Unlimited today. With the recent campaign of Facebook to ban so-called dangerous individuals and YouTube's new policy on hate speech, I believe that we are going to start seeing the fall of Silicon Valley. And the reason why I believe we are seeing the fall of Silicon Valley is because when it comes down to many of these tech giants, they are abusing we the people. And they are abusing we the people because they believe that because they control the technology that everybody uses every day, that they can dictate how people are supposed to think, how people are supposed to act, and how people are supposed to vote. And these tech giants believe that they have this power over people because they have this control over this technology. However, what these tech giants don't seem to understand is it was we, the people, who elevated their companies to that high position by spending our money to support them, and it was we, the people, who made their platforms the billion-dollar institutions that they've become. And when these tech giants go out of their way to abuse we, the people, there has to be some sort of backlash. And I believe in a country with a free market economy that backlash is going to come sooner rather than later, because when it comes down to your Silicon Valley, it's clear to me that they have too much power and they just aren't being responsible with that power. And when you go out of your way to try to censor people in the United States of America, where we have the right to free speech, that shows that your Silicon Valley is completely out of control. And when it comes down to Silicon Valley, there needs to be some sort of regulation. Now, some politicians believe that the regulation should come from the government. However, I believe that the free market can correct many of these out-of-pocket companies like your Google and your Facebook and your YouTube, which believe that they have the right to censor and deplatform people, all because they have opinions that they disagree with. And I believe that the free market will go out of its way to deal with these companies, and the way they're going to deal with those companies is by people migrating away from these companies. Now, when it comes down to your Silicon Valley, they have not really experienced any sort of major pain or major loss in the last 30 years, I believe, and they haven't really suffered the way many tech companies suffered during the video game crash of 1983. Now, I was 10 years old when we had the video game crash of 1983, and during that time, hundreds of tech companies went out of business as a result of them producing too much hardware and too much software, and the saturation of the market was the first time that your big tech suffered a major loss that left a lot of these tech gurus reeling and realizing that they weren't the gods that they thought they were. And I believe we need the exact same type of tech crash to come to help these people who have become moguls like your Mark Zuckerberg and the owners of Google to be humbled for their extreme acts of hubris, believing that they can dictate to we the people how we are supposed to think, how we are supposed to act, and how we are supposed to vote, when it is we the people who are the ones who help these people become billion-dollar corporations, and it was we the people who go out here and elevated their companies to the high position that they were. if it wasn't for people using the tech that Silicon Valley has, they would not be multi-billion-dollar companies. And many of your companies, like Apple, would be going the same way Coleco did after it introduced its Atom computer system in 1983. And that system completely failed to catch on with customers. And the same thing, I believe, is going to happen to your Apple that happened to Coleco in 1983, because when it comes down to your Tim Cook, he does not have the vision of Steve Jobs, and he is producing numerous products which are alienating customers, like the MacBook Pro, which no longer has USB ports or a series of ports that people use every day, and it has a keyboard that is extremely difficult to use, and a monitor issue with the screen as related to the cable where it falls apart. So I see where big tech is not really looking out for the customer anymore, and it has taken the customer for granted. And this is why big tech is going out of its way to abuse customers, because they don't respect the customer, and they have taken the customer and end user for granted. They believe that the end user will always be there, and they don't appreciate the opportunity given to them to have these customers on the regular. And because they do not appreciate those customers, that's why I believe that there is a reckoning coming to big tech, and this is going to lead to a crash on the level of the one in 1983, because the video game crash of 1983, this was a humbling period for many video game producers who thought that the customers were going to be there forever and took their customer base for granted, saturating the market with so many products that the customers couldn't buy them, and producing so many poor quality games that no one had an incentive to buy them, because the games had really poor graphics and they had poor quality gameplay. And I also, in addition to remembering the Atom system, remember the Atari 5200. Yes, it had great graphics, but the controllers were absolute garbage. And that also, again, was part of what led to the video game crash of '83. And when I look at your Google, your Facebook, your Apple, and the way they just mistreat their customers and abuse their customers, I see that, again, that reckoning coming for Silicon Valley, because when it comes down to Silicon Valley, they have gotten, as I see it, extremely arrogant. They are filled with too much pride. They are filled with too much hubris, and they believe they can impose their will on the country because they are billionaires and they are wealthy, not understanding your wealth came from we the people using your products. And when it comes down to those products, none of these owners of these Silicon Valley companies seem to understand the concepts of the internet being fluid and technology evolving. And when I look at companies like Apple, who have taken their customers for granted and have literally taken away many of the features that customers want, like when it comes down to their computers, soldering RAM to the motherboard and not allowing people to upgrade their products, they have already planned, they talk about planned obsolescence, when what they're doing is making themselves where no one wants to go and buy your products, because you've made it where the product cannot be upgraded and the product cannot be modified by the user. So the user has no reason to keep buying the product. And this is why Apple's sales are starting to decline. And when it comes down to your Facebook, the reason why their users are declining is because younger users see Facebook as an old person's website, one, and two, they see it as a website where they cannot freely express their opinions without somebody going out of their way to censor them, because your owners of Facebook are in their feelings regarding people having differing opinions and having opposing viewpoints. And with those people not being able to express themselves, what's going to happen to your Facebook is the website is eventually going to turn into the next MySpace, because if people cannot express themselves on a social media platform, then they're going to leave that social media platform for one where they can express themselves freely. And those websites that are out here now, competitors like MeWe and like YourMinds.com, which say they support the First Amendment, they are going to get a good bulk of Facebook customers who are older, whereas younger customers are going to go find other platforms like Snapchat to go to, or even create a brand new social media platform. Because when it comes down to the internet, again, the internet is fluid, and if one company does not allow you the opportunity to express yourself freely or present your viewpoints on a platform, people go and migrate to another platform. And when it comes down to multi-billion-dollar companies like Google, they will fall, because when it comes down to them trying to do things like hide search results, what happens is people start looking at DuckDuckGo as an alternative. And just like Yahoo before them, who had their own website and had tremendous power, your Google will fall just like Yahoo. So when I look at your Silicon Valley today, I look at it as one where the free marketplace is going to deal with these companies, because these companies don't want to serve the customer, and they have gotten so full of themselves and so full of hubris that they believe that the customer is dependent on them. And that is the gravest error that Silicon Valley could make in their whole business model, because when it comes down to the customer is never dependent on you, and all it takes is for one innovation to come and your company can be replaced in an instant. And when I look at Silicon Valley, I see a very eerie parallel to what happened with your Standard Oil back in the turn of the 20th century, a monopoly that got so big and bloated that it took its customers for granted. And I also see mirrors of AT&T, the only phone company that in the United States that also took its customers for granted. And when you take your customers for granted, that's a huge mistake, because when it comes down to these internet tech companies, they are not monopolies, and they don't have complete control over people. And when we the people realize that they do not have complete control over us, then we the people can take that power back from these companies and send them a message that their business is because we the people supported them, and if they don't support us, we the people can put them out of business, just like we the people put many of those video game companies out of business in 1983. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the Spinsterella trilogy, and my men's issues books, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, E-Steam Goddess of. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Goddess of in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.